All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Going Rogue podcast. This is going to be the final part in the Games Are Dying series. We sat down with Jacob Langworthy, king of the lightweights, even though he's no longer a lightweight, but we like to remind him of that. Professional thrower and host of the 9 Point Day podcast. If you haven't heard them, please go check him out. He'll also be throwing with us at the Woodridge Games. But before we get into that, I have some people to mention, one of which being that the Woodridge Celtic Festival is live on heavyathlete.com right now. So if you go look up Woodridge Farm Celtic Festival or just go under the calendar function, you can set that up however you'd like. Go check it out, sign up. Heavy Athlete has just released some improvements for both lightweight tracking and then for premium users, a prediction feature, which I think is absolutely awesome. So definitely check them out. Make an account if you haven't so far. Claim your scores and get rolling on heavyathlete.com. Badger Highland Game Supply, you guys have heard us talk about them 1,000 times. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram the same way. Greg Martz makes some fantastic tacky products, equipment, anything you would need to get going in the Highland Games. We've also got the Strength Agenda. They are sponsoring some of our pro athletes for the Woodridge Farm Games. So the Strength Agenda actually offers a Highland Game specific ebook that you can download that's got event specific training, strength development, explosive power, technical precision, and then recovery and mobility modalities built in there as well. So if you're kind of looking for a one-stop shop on how to elevate your training for the Highland Games, reach out to Tom Sroka over there with the Strength Agenda. They also have remote coaching and other training programs available, so be sure to check them out. Scottish Throws Coach, speaking of great coaching, is run by Matt McDougall, one of our frequent co-hosts on the podcast. You can check him out at scottishthrowscoach.com. Matt is doing remote coaching specifically for the Scottish Highland Games. So if you're looking for a way to get technique breakdowns and ways to structure your training as well, go check that out. The Savage Life Company. So Savage Life does a little bit of everything. They have personal coaching, they have accessories, they have flags, they have apparel, anything you could be in the market for. And I've got to say, their shirts look absolutely awesome. I think they just put some on the website that are designs they released specifically up at the Arnold booth. They are going to be sponsoring some of our athletes as well and having a booth at the Woodridge Games. So go check them out, savagelife.co. We've also got Stars and Thistles. I'm sure you've seen them making the rounds with their really fun hashtag #BeTacky. So a little bit about them. It's run by the Quarters, but I'm going to read to you guys off of their website because I think they said it better than anyone could. They said their story began with a devoted father who cherished the traditions of the Scottish Highland Games and instilled with them the community and friendship that we've all come to know and love. So he's passed down that tacky making ability and recipe to them. And you've got multiple generations going into each batch of tacky, which I think is absolutely awesome. They say in a world that can sometimes feel serious, we encourage laughter and connection. Invite you to embrace this tradition with us and join in the joy of being tacky. So they just wrapped up their Highland Dames Clinic, which I think went over really, really well. You can go check them out at starsandthistles.com. You can get tacky, stickers, apparel, hoodies, t-shirts, you name it, they've got it. They've got some absolutely awesome stuff. So please go check them out. All right, and last but not least, we do have Kilted Patriot. So Kilted Patriot was founded in memory of Joel Sim. They are working to support the community of the heavy athletics that Joel really helped build and love. You can read more about them on their website, kiltedpatriot.com, under their About Us tab. They are sponsoring the athletic experience as well as individual athletes. That's what they're helping us out with at the Woodridge Games. Their goal is to encourage participation and keep growing the sport, and they tend to really focus on the athletic portion. Which, if you've ever heard us talk about that here at Going Rogue, that is really what we're big on, is the athlete experience. So we're very excited to be working with them. They contribute for food, swag, awards, things like that. They will have a special award at the Woodridge Games, and hopefully some swag baskets to go along as well for either winners or podiums of certain classes once we get that work out. So they're also working very hard to explore and encourage the adaptive side of the Scottish Highland Games. So if you're an athlete or you know someone who would be a good fit for that, please reach out to them. They are trying to get more adaptive classes at as many games as possible. The games themselves don't have to be adapted. It is just, an implement thing. So they are really pushing to ADs to try and get that much more widely available. So go check them out at kiltedpatriot.com. For all the updates on the Woodridge Farm Games and the people that are helping sponsor our pro class and the other levels of our competition as well, you can check all that out at our website, goingrogue.com. without too much more ado, guys, we are going to get into the games. I spent a ton of phone memory trying to record every event from Sedalia yesterday with the intent of putting it on YouTube, and we'll see if I ever actually get around to it. But
Yeah,
I'm not holding my breath. No one else should either. It's
I generally record every event at a games I'm at, unless my phone overheats or like it just dies or I start
yeah,
losing and I'm like, well, I gotta fucking focus up, and I put it on
right. Well,
YouTube,
I
and
took
they
the
are
time of
the.
what it is. I let it run for. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say like when I chop them up like event by event, they are the boringest videos. Um, I
Hmm.
and you have to really want to watch Highland Games throwing to enjoy it, which is very few people. Some people are just very content just
Hmm.
doing it. But me, when I started, like that's what I wanted to see the most of was just people throwing, uh, and like maybe find a guy I'm like, oh, I want to do what he does, and then just copy that technique. So I'm trying to help other
Yeah,
people
yeah.
out who
That's
are on that
that
same
was
path.
that was my hope because I remember watching like when Throwbros used to run the HG Live, and they'd
Oh
just
yeah,
have full unedited sections of games put up. So that was essentially what I did. Is I'm hoping to just be able to put up, here is the full run of lightweight for distance. Here's the full run of heavyweight, and just go like that, and everyone can watch everyone do it. You know,
yeah.
you can watch all of us struggle to keep up with Graham. Spoiler alert: he swept everything, and it was frustrating. But it is what it is.
Yeah,
So.
I watch those HG Live videos a ton. I'll still go back and watch like Salt Lake and the Arnold because I think those are the
Hmm.
two best ones they've
Yeah,
done, and like they still
yeah.
hold up.
Salt Lake, Arnold. Salt Lake was the Utah game, right?
Yeah,
Is that or no? There was one specifically Utah. Utah is one of the ones I'll go back and watch all the time because Damian Fisher's technique through those is just, I mean,
yeah, I think
it's
it's the same one.
flawless. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
We might be talking about the same one, just calling it two different things.
yeah,
The
it's
one where
it's it's the
I
it's
think it was
in you. I
Ryan
think
was
it's
narrating.
yeah, that's the Salt Lake
Hmm.
Scottish Festival. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
and Spencer like safety throws a 46-foot heavyweight on his third so that he can take extras.
yeah,
Prick.
which yeah, like that's not human. You shouldn't be able to
What?
do that.
Yeah, what a jerk. But
Some of us have to work
anyway, all right,
hard.
we can get into yeah, we can get into what we're actually here for. And you are wrapping up the series for The Games Are Dying. And I don't know how much you
Yeah.
followed thing I'd put out about it up until now, because like Kyle came on and talked about it, me and Matt talked about
Hmm.
it. Numerically, there is evidence that the games are dying, and I mean, we just had Fort Four cancel a bunch of stuff, which I think there's probably a pretty fun story behind. I just haven't harassed anyone to try and get them on to talk about it yet, but
Yeah.
I uh, I think it's interesting. So it's worth talking about and getting different people's opinions, man. So I wanted to have you on here, and you know, the floor is yours. Why are we dying, or are we not dying? And if we are dying, how do we save it?
Well, we're definitely dying, but it's one of those things that I don't think Highland Games is ever going to go away. Because
Hmm.
there are a couple games that you can argue are like too big to fail. Here in the states and in Scotland. Like they're just ones that are kind of like a figure that aren't going to go away. Some of the bigger ones, but as the sport goes, it's we're not recruiting enough people to participate in this. The numbers are stagnant. They're either stagnant or declining. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of reasons why that is. And no one wants to like cast blame on anyone else for whose fault it is. But I mean, I think it's all of our fault if we have a vested interest in growing, like having the sport be successful and be something cool. It's all of our fault that it's not growing. And like some of the biggest things is when we recruit new people, there is a million and one hurdles they have to jump through just to be able to compete. When it comes to like finding groups, finding implements, finding games, there up until now that was 6 different Facebook groups, and some of them are private, and you don't know where to go, where to start looking for things like that.
Hmm.
But
And
heavy
there's not even a
athlete
common thread of what to search, Like you could go
exactly.
on Facebook and search Celtic and get a different result than Highland Games, than heavy athletics, than like we couldn't even clarify the search terms for people to go
Yeah,
find them.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, it also doesn't help that we are not. Highland Games is not really in the American lexicon. No one knows what it is. People have seen it, but it just goes like in one ear and out the other, or yeah, whatever. But so I think a lot of things we can do better. Well, one is like educating the public as to what we are,
Hmm.
and just. But see, again, like I'm going to be all over the place because I thought about this a lot, a whole bunch.
Yeah.
We have a 10,000 person problem. We need 10,000 more people at an absolute minimum soon to grow the sport so it doesn't just fade away. Everyone wants to talk about putting us on ESPN and being in stadiums and things like that. We will never get there because there are 6,000 Highland Games athletes worldwide. There's no money in it. There's no incentive for anyone to fork out any money to put us on a big stage. And
Hmm.
if we were to ever get to that big stage, are we good enough to be there? Like, can we entertain like strongman can? Can we entertain like American football? I don't think we have the model for that.
Yeah.
I don't think games are set up to like be like a main event of a thing.
Yeah. Not right now when you consider we only have 12 athletes that are hypothetically entertaining enough to actually pull off putting on a show, like nationwide,
Right.
Like,
Yeah. It, I think one of the big things, and like we can go through little things that we can do better to fix like the problems. And one thing I think about a lot is games formatting. The format of
hmm.
games that we have right now, it sucks for the entertainer. It's an 8 9 hour day, and you're watching 100 different people do the same shit over and over and over and over again. It gets very boring, gets very
Yeah.
watered down, gets very stale quickly. And when I talked to Jerry Reynolds, who ran a games in Scotland for 20 plus years, and this is kind of how a lot of Scottish games run is they don't throw all 9 events. They don't, well, for them 8. They don't throw all 8 events. They throw a stone, a weight, a hammer, caber, and wob. That's 5 events. It's a quick day. They can start at noon and be done by 4, and people can come like wake up, have a nice like normal day, and then go visit the Highland Games and like watch the best of the best compete for a few hours, have a couple beers, have a snack or two, maybe lunch, and then they can go about their business.
Hmm.
But they're getting maximum amount of like entertainment in that short period of time. I think we could do something similar. I don't believe every games in the states needs to have 9 events. Some, sure, if that's the AD's prerogative, but I think if you're paying an admission fee, like as a spectator, I think we're doing them a disservice by putting everyone on the field at the exact same time because they don't know what they're looking at. They don't know who's the best at
No,
this.
that's a that's a great point because I mean, if you do compare us to all the sports that everyone wants us to be like, and like, if you were to put us in a stadium, how do you keep people in a stadium for 8 hours?
Mm-hmm.
That that doesn't make any sense. I mean, if an NFL game is the longest thing people do, I mean, you're only actually in the stadium for what, 3 hours, 4 hours, maybe?
Yep.
That's I hadn't thought about that. That is a scaling problem of how would we accomplish that same thing?
Well, yeah. Into if you look at like how we do it with the different like the different classes or different flights as it is now. in the masters and women's and things like that, different divisions, all on the same field. It's like going to like a kid's like soccer game, right? There are 50 fields out there, and everyone's playing soccer, but you're just going to sit there and like just watch your family, right? Like your friend who's doing
Yeah.
it. You're not going to watch anything else. So if we need to create superstars in the sport, people that like athletes that people want to come out and see.
Hmm.
And as far as like having a different format where like it's less people on the field, that's where the open model kind of works pretty well. You can do like this. See, and I've thought about this a lot because I think there's a lot of potential in this. Is that in the morning or on the Sunday? Because if you have a 2 day competition,
Hmm.
Saturday's usually the busiest day. You can have like your best people out there, your two best classes, your men's and your women's, and depending on region, your masters might be your best class. They might be your most like entertaining. So you would put them on a Saturday,
Hmm.
and it's just two groups, a men's group and a women's group, and everyone else will compete on a Sunday. Or in the morning, if you're doing 5 events, you would have them compete in the other classes compete in the morning.
Yeah.
Because like I've been to so many games that we start at 9 and people don't show up until noon. And at that point, we're already like
Hmm.
well into
Yeah,
hammers.
your
They've
opening
missed.
ceremonies are at 11 o'clock.
They've
Yeah.
well, the people who show up have missed half of our events, half the day, because it's just such a long
Hmm.
day. But with that kind of comes like you don't want to discourage anyone from participating by having games that only offer like a men's and women's open. That could potentially leave a lot of people out. And when
Yeah.
we're trying to grow the sport, that's the last thing we want to do is like discourage people from showing up or reducing their
Hmm.
opportunities to compete.
Yeah. No, that's interesting though. That would be really, from an AD perspective, as someone who's trying to run games and trying to make them more appealing to the athletes and the venues. I think it could be really interesting to float, even if it's only one or two in your state that year, like a 5 event open format.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that could be very marketable to both the venues and to athletes. Like, don't change everyone's games to that, but I think you could potentially really, make a very watchable, very marketable product out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
one thing that I thought about a ton is that when it comes to recruitment of new athletes is in a perfect world, I would like to see every major city in the United States have a local throwing group that has 30 to 60 people competing in it or like active members. And in these, and again, this is just like in a perfect utopian kind of world, each one of these groups will run 2 Highland games a year, 2 small backyarders, and they can scale it however big and small they want it. But there'll be 5 event games. And so you can do like in the springtime you'll do all light events, and then in the fall you'll do all the heavy events, or you can mix and match them. But that way, even if your local throwing group only like the members of your local throwing group only do your events, your 2 events, then they're still getting all 9. That'll fit well into rankings. They're not going to be missing things because the last thing you want is to
Hmm.
compete 3 times a year and the ones you go to have never have heavyweight. So now if you want to level up, you want to work your way up in the ranks. Like you're missing a whole year's missing heavyweight. So you can rely on local groups
Yeah.
to facilitate that, but that requires a lot of work. And
Yeah.
that's where when you have like a local throwing group, you need people who are motivated to want to like progress and take kind of like leadership roles and things like this. But again, 10,000 people short
Yeah.
of good ideas.
No. I no, but I really like that, and uh, our fall venue, Woodridge, really wants us to run a spring thing. That might be an interesting time to float a limited class 5 hour event, you know?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I've
All
got
right.
a
You
million
you might get a
ideas.
producer credit on that there, Mr. Langworthy. That might be
Yeah.
doable.
Yeah, and so again, like just spitballing here. I say spitballing. I've been thinking about this for a long time. Along with these smaller games, you have clinics, right? That are 3 weeks out or whatever,
Hmm.
and that can get that's just more opportunity for you to promote what you're doing, and to kind of get
Yeah.
people into the fold, because there's a lot of new athletes out there that their first time touching an implement is on like the games day, and it's
Yeah.
never like fun trying to learn how to do something in front of people, right? So like if you have like a small clinic or like a try it kind of class, a big open
Hmm.
practice, you give a lot of people opportunity to like break the ice with the Highland Games.
Yeah. God, those left a bad taste in my mouth. We tried that when we were doing the Lloyd games for which we did them twice. Before the second one, which was going to be a bigger 2 day event, we were like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, a month out, we're going to run a clinic. And I think two people signed up.
Yeah,
And I was
the,
like, all right, cool. Appreciate it.
yeah, that's a risk for sure.
I'm
Especially like
telling you, man.
if you intend for it to be like substantial, like you're going to probably pick up some insurance for that, and
Hmm.
who's going to cover that? Hopefully the the $5 like entry fee for that like might cover it, but and then if no one shows up, now
Right.
you're
And
just
I've
stuck
got
with
to
that bill.
log, you know, I got to bring out at least 2 to 3 cavers. I have to bring out a full set of implements and hammers, and I've got to have uprights, and then two people register.
Yeah,
That.
yeah. That's when
Oh,
like the highly motivated like really like needs to happen. You're like, I'm going to do this whether or not it sucks or not, and but
yeah.
it's tough.
It's a roll of the dice. It's a bummer, but no, that's really good. Um, I pose to you the question of something that Mr. Lilly brought up: would
Mhm.
a governing body help in progressing any of these lofty goals? Because I think based on what you've said, I think it would make sense to have a governing body, like a group that authorizes if you're going to run 5 event backyard open formats and you want to have some legitimacy to them, something that resembles a governing body at a minimum would probably help that, you know?
Yes and no, which is like the answer everyone wants to give. Like,
Okay.
yeah, I think that will help, but then also like, no, I don't need anyone else to tell me how to do it. Right? I don't. We can do it all ourselves. I think what's better is because a governing body can like it can really take away from the spirit of what this is. Right? Like we've ever since Highland Games has been a thing in the United States. It's been just solo people doing it and working under the kind of the similar parameters that they have. And anytime you get a governing body in there, I mean, look at powerlifting for instance. Like how many powerlifting federations are
Yeah.
out there, and how many different rules they have to where one does not resemble anything close to what the other one is. The only similarities they have are squat,
Hmm.
bench, and deadlift. But what those squat, bench, and deadlifts are completely different, right? Like we're coming out of a monolift or we're coming out of a combination rack. Like you can walk. Like
Yeah.
there's one where it's like
We've
you're
got a
gonna.
mono, but you still have to walk out for some
Yes,
reason.
that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, like, and like you can arch on bench, but then you can't, and then you can
Yeah.
arch, but not
Your
too
elbows have
much.
to
Like
come down past your shoulders, and then, yeah.
right. It opens to
Yeah.
the door for a very small group of people to get fragmented really quickly. If we had 100,000 athletes annually competing in the Highland Games, I think we can, like, maybe a governing body could work then. But right now, like, I think a governing body would just kill everything we're doing. That being
Yeah.
said, I
Here's the
think,
idea that I'd.
sure.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say that I think the better idea is have people who are running big games, making big changes, kind of creating the ideas of how to format things, kind of lead the way. And if your games wants to pick up these ideas
Hmm.
and these methods, that's the way to go. Because that in championships. So first, let's look at like Danny Webster's rule book that he came up with. That he
Yeah,
didn't really come up with.
which is a great example.
He's using it like he's taking a rule book and modernizing it and distributing it for free. If you want to use Backyard Rebellion rules, all power to you. Like that's the way to go. And for those rules to become like standard and like commonplace, more people will pick it up, and we'll find the athletes will essentially get a vote with their dollar, where they want to compete at, because like they're like, oh, like
Hmm.
this games lets me step out to the left side on hammers, while this games they make you throw hammers in a box, and you get to decide which rules you want to play with. And then once we decide, that becomes the standard. The other thing is championships. There's a shit ton of championships coming out. Like you guys have ECCs. I know Danny Webster and SAAA were talking about doing a women's championship for the East
Yeah,
Coast
because
and the West
Danny
Coast.
runs an East Coast women's, and then
Yeah,
SAAA was talking about running an West Coast women's. Yeah,
yeah, and then they were going to meet in the middle somewhere, and I don't know, East versus West essentially, which is a
yeah.
great
And
idea.
some asshole started a Blue Ridge championship, which is
Yeah,
just
see, exactly, and
yeah,
that's totally cool. And so, and yours are, if you competed in a couple different states, like those get you in.
if you live in any of those states. So I'm trying to take
Okay,
natives from those states, and then based on their rankings, invite them to a championship.
yeah,
Just because I want that region to get more good athletes in it. I want them to have something to train for. You know.
yeah. And so with like the East Coast championships and the West Coast women's championships, like there are. I haven't talked to Danny about this, but like there are probably rules that these games have to meet these parameters. Like big box trigs don't count,
Hmm.
like things like that. And
Yeah.
so if you want your games and your women to be able to like compete here and earn a spot at these championships, you'll follow these rules. And I think that that's another way for us to kind of progress into some kind of standardization. We are meeting the
Hmm.
parameters for like most pro games will meet the specifications for Celtic, because potentially someone at this games competing as a pro could earn spots at Celtic. We don't want to have them throw and not get to that championship spot because this game didn't count.
Yeah.
But it all comes down to people, like we have to make bigger things that other people want to participate in, and other
Hmm.
ads to want to facilitate that for their athletes. And I think we're trending in that direction, which is good.
Yeah. Because I ended up. I'll explain my thought process because I think I thought of a middle ground, and you can tell me
Mm-hmm.
if I'm insane or not. And I'm not saying I'm going to do this because it'd be more work than I know I want to put in right now. But I also tend to hyperfixate on things. So Danny put out his rule book, which I then read through and adapted into our rule book that we're going to use for any of the games that we came on with. And then through this whole conversation with people, and Matt had the idea of the games need to embrace more backyarders, and then you're saying 5 event open formats, and I debated if the idea of, instead of a governing body, if there was just some sort of certificate of legitimacy, if people who wanted to run games, whether they're associated with a festival or not, like I will use Going Rogue as an example because it's the only thing I have control over. But let's say if Going Rogue wanted to put a stamp of approval on games, and all I said was, "Hey ADs, send me photographs of all of your implements on scales. Send me all the measurements of your cabers so I know they're not crap. Send me examples of the trigs you're going to use, and read through our rule book and see if you disagree with them." And if, they pay a $20 admin fee every year just to make it worth my time to not, find which ceiling fan is load bearing, And we just go through that and we just give them a little pass and say, yep, this game is at least certified. Now, does that mean anything if one or two people do it? No. But if 20 people do that, it starts to mean something. Because the Celtic
Right.
has their set of rules and what they consider Celtic qualifiers. So why, in my brain, why could the sport not just start to do something akin to that, but with a different level of certification? You know, something that's more athlete focused, something that's more, are the trigs and the equipment and the judging all consistent? And then if we can all start to agree on that, we don't need a governing body. We just need transparency. And you know that if when you go to sign up for that, you say, hey, this game has been, certified by, not sanctioned by, not run by, but look, someone else, a third party, came in and said, this all should meet the standard. I think we could start to add that level of legitimacy in a baby step as opposed to flat out having a governing body. Because I don't want to take the time to come to your game and actually have to see how you run it. But if you're going to tell me, hey, X, Y, and Z is what we're doing, I think that's much more manageable. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I guess devil's advocate is what's the point? What like it's a
So
good idea.
so
It's a good idea, but what does that change? Because like we're
I
all
think it
like
I think it accomplishes a couple of things, right? So I think one, if we're going to start drawing in high level athletes potentially from other sports, I think it makes us look more official, which by de facto reasoning makes us more official, right? Hey, you're going to a certified
yeah.
game versus not. And then
Hmm.
let's say with all these new championships popping up, if they all decide, hey, in order to qualify, you need to be competing at these games, somewhat in the way that Celtic does, but instead of tying it to payout numbers and number of athletes competing and where there are bagpipers and dancers, we look at it from the athletic standpoint. I I would think something like that would help. I think if you
Yeah.
could get the ADs that are running new championships and new invite only games like Dublin or women's ECCs and things like that on board, I think it would help. Like,
Yeah. I think it could. I guess the only thing I was thinking is just like does it matter too much that a game's weight that they have is 2 inches longer than the next one? Like, is that like
here's the thing.
is that changing anything?
I mean it I think it also would add a level of legitimacy to world records or field records or state records or age class records and things like that.
Mm.
I think because there's always some discrepancy half the time when someone sets a new record, right? Because the
Yeah.
AD takes it to a post office 3 days later and takes a picture of it on a scale,
Oh,
or it
I
never
mean,
gets taken.
yeah. I mean, some stones
It,
you can soak in water and they'll pull a
it
pound in.
exactly. So
Yeah.
I I think I think the main benefit is just legitimacy and transparency, which are two things that the sport is lacking.
Hmm.
And I think that would have a trickle down effect to fixing a lot of other things.
Yeah.
I think if athletes knew ahead of time very clearly what they were getting and the guesswork was taken out of it, I just think it makes the games more approachable to the right type of people to get into this sport. You'll always have your group of local weirdos that just think wearing kilts and throwing things is fun. We
Hmm.
don't have to market hard to get those people in. But if you
Yeah.
want to have more legitimate, entertaining athletes that may be able to fill a stadium for 4 hours, like everyone does need to kind of get on the same page because those people aren't all in one group. They're not all coming from the state of Virginia and knowing what to expect. Some are going to be in Virginia and Kentucky and Oregon and Washington. They're going to be everywhere,
Yeah.
And it's just to get us all on the same page. It wouldn't be to rein it in entirely. It could be winged versus standard trigs, as long as we all agree what winged and standard are. It could be lead foot versus center of the trig. That's fine. Those are two accepted ways to measure, you know? But
I
you'd be able to say,
disagree.
at a minimum, I think it doesn't matter on anything other than stones. I think on stones, yeah, you can milk something out of a wing trig measured from the center for sure. And I I will every single time I'm ever given the
Yeah.
opportunity do that.
You've
But
reminded me to do that.
yeah, hey man, why don't you actually, use your head?
Yeah. I'm trying to win, okay? Focus on one thing.
Yeah. But
Dude,
again, I think it's fine. I think it wouldn't kill the spirit of the sport. You'd still let people have their individuality of how they want to run a game. I'm not going to tell you you have to make 2-foot jumps on sheaf as a part of this certification. I just
right.
want to know, do you have a bar that's at least 10 feet wide, and does the bag weigh at least 10, 16, or 20 pounds?
Right.
That's the end of it. Everything past that you want to do as an AD, you can make 18-foot jumps. I do not give a shit. You know,
Yeah.
like so.
That
I
man, I've never thought about that, but like that is like it's future proofing. Just kind of having like a going rogue seal of approval on it. Uh,
and
it
and
could
that's it.
mean
It really
something.
is just that, and it wouldn't cost an arm and a leg because I don't give a shit. Like I don't care. All I want
Mhm.
is to be able to save on my little 1 terabyte removable hard drive. I could have a folder that said, here are all of Jacob's games that Jacob runs, and here are all the photos of all of his implements. They are on a scale that reads the correct numbers. They are next to a tape measure that shows they're no longer than 18 inches or whatever. And, there we go. And then here's his measurements that he provided for the 5 cabers he's going to run. And they all seem to be, reasonably competitive for the various classes that he's offering.
I was just thinking
That's
that
it.
just because if you decide not to do it, maybe someone else does. I think there should be
Hmm.
minimums for length of like chain on weight, like because like there's the maximum length for like 18 inches or whatever. I don't want to see it
Yeah.
less than like 16, right? Like it because you
Hmm.
can. I've seen games where people are throwing wobs for distance because that's just what they have, and
Yeah.
I don't
And
think because
honestly,
like
sometimes
just
it's really easy, man. Yeah.
I mean just because like it's not over the length does not mean it still is good, right?
Yep.
But that's for someone else to think about. Maybe
Yeah.
me. I
But
don't know.
it's
You
an
give me some
idea I've been
ideas.
tossing around, and maybe I'll start drafting something and writing it up. But one, I would need to know that people were interested in that. Like, hey, I'm not going to tell you how to run a game, but like, does this make sense? Can this way we at least know that, look, if you go to any of this AD's 5 games, or my 2 games, or this AD's 3 games, that like we're all on the same page. You're going to
Yeah.
get the same product more or less from an athletic standpoint at any of them. And I think if you could start to get people on the same page, that would it would start moving us in the right direction, you know?
How do you feel about
But that's
shots versus stones?
mhm.
I mean, because like I think a lot of people out there like throwing stones, but I think if we want to have that legitimacy that we're talking about, is I think shot puts are the way to go as far as like standardization.
Yeah.
But some ads might say like that's taking away their freedom to
Well, and
to.
and I think it's one of those things where you could just do either. Like
Mhm.
you're throwing either a shot or a stone weighing at a minimum 16 pounds for the men and what, 8 pounds for the women.
Yeah,
It's not that
yeah.
hard to write in, and it's fine. I need people to stop getting butt hurt if a shot gets used. I every year when I renew a game, I'd sit there and have that debate with myself of, is this the year I'm just gonna say screw it and move to shot puts?
Yeah.
You know, I
Anytime I see a games like throwing a shot, I get kind of excited. I'm like, okay, so that's an AD who's like wants some kind of consistency and stuff like that. I don't know.
yeah.
It seems like
Well,
seems
then I'll
better.
let you know because you're one of them. Look, if all the pros at Woodridge agree, I'll let you all throw a shot put. I'm here for it. I'll have Ponzio yeet that thing 65 feet. I'm game. I think it
Yeah,
would be great.
yeah.
You know?
I I'm
So,
here for it. I throw better with a shot,
all
anyways.
right.
So
Yeah, I'm all for it. I wrestle with what is the correct amount of time out, and I think I'd have to do it at the opening of registration, which I'm
yeah,
already past for Woodridge this year. I
hmm
can't risk ticking people off, but there's always a chance of is it next year? Or if I do a spring 5 event open format,
Hmm.
you know what? It's a shorter game anyway. Maybe we're just throwing shots. Maybe
Yeah.
everyone's only doing the open stone, and that's what we're doing, you know?
Yeah, I'm for
Because,
it.
yeah. Man, that
Did
might also work in really well. This is
did
great. This I don't even
Yeah,
care how the podcast turns out. I'm just going to
yeah.
sit here and milk ideas out of you for the
So
next 40 minutes.
this is all I do. I sit here and I talk to people about Highland games like all the time. It's like
Yeah.
yesterday I had I drove down south and had a practice with my friend, and we threw for an hour. We ended up just standing out in the sun talking for I don't know 4 hours. I ended up getting sunburned pretty bad, but the first 85-degree day we had, so I was sitting there enjoying the sun. But that's all I do. It's
Yeah.
just I have ideas and I need someone to hear them.
Yeah. No, same, buddy. That's the only reason I do this is because if I keep the thoughts inside too long, they rot.
Right.
So,
Did
um,
did you you said you looked at Danny's rules and like you changed some stuff. What did you change?
so a very little, honestly. I kept it almost mostly the same. I changed some of the illustrations. There were a lot of parts where he just straight snippet tooled out of Nazca,
Hmm.
and I just went ahead and redrew stuff because I have the editing software on my iPad to do that.
Sure.
So I cleaned it up. I made a table of contents. I reordered a lot of things, and then in my rule book, I was kind of a stickler, and I made sure that the language matched.
Hmm.
Because when Danny pulled his rule set from multiple different places, this is gonna be hard to word, but like, so in one event, he may be telling you what you can't do, and it says an athlete shall not X, Y, and Z. Then you'd move to another event, and it would say instead of telling you what you can't do, it would say an athlete may A, B, and C. And I just wanted to kind of unify all that language to make it easier to digest. So I just went through event to event and made sure that the structure of how I laid them all out was the same.
Yeah.
So like I can't give you an exact example off the top of my head. My brain is burned out from competing yesterday. But like if you read through the rule book that I made up for our games, it should be relatively similar. When you read through Hammer, like the order is even the same. I'm going to tell you weights and lengths and how it's measured, and then I'm going to tell you approved techniques, and then I'm going to tell you this. And that like general order reading through is going to read the same from heavy and lightweight to open and Braemar stone and X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And then
I made
I
a
I did put a little bit of language in there trying to address people wanting to challenge judges and things like that. And also just some athlete protection of like, if you're ever if you think a judge is wrong, I wanted to give people a written down way of here's how you come tell me that. Like I don't want anyone to ever feel put out because I've had that happen at games where judges have made calls that I have based on the rules I've always known to be wrong.
hmm
And you feel like a real dick going around
right.
that judge to go up to the AD, or some people do. I don't.
Yeah.
I'll do it. But some people do feel rude, like going to talk about that. And I wanted it written down that if one of my judges is doing something wrong that's not in this rule book that is published out here for all of us to see, I wanted language in there that says, come tell me. We'll
Yeah.
address it, you know?
Yeah. That's good. And like that's kind of like one of those like people can be wrong. We are not infallible. Like so, like with
Yeah.
whoever your judges are, that like they understand that at any point in time an athlete can like request to speak to like the head judge. Because I know a lot of games out
Hmm.
here in Kansas and in the Midwest, like we have judges, and then one of the judges is going to be the head judge, and he's the guy who's been doing it longer than anyone, and will tell you who's right and who's wrong in a situation. Rarely ever happens, but it could be useful.
Yeah.
But I
So
like,
it's just stuff like that,
yeah,
you know?
I do like that. I'm a sucker for a good rule book. That's laid out correctly. I wrote a rule book when I was competing as a lightweight for because it seemed like every year we were talking about lightweight nationals and the world championships
Hmm.
and what's allowed, what's not allowed, dealing with people from other countries and their rules. How do those fit into our rules? And so I wrote a rule book. No one ever got to see it. It's buried in my computer somewhere. but I did the same thing. Is all very much like what is not allowed,
Hmm.
specifically like in it was like it was a bunch of shall nots and stuff like that. But
Yep.
it was very clear as to like what is allowed and what isn't.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm sitting here scrolling through mine right now, just trying to, because like I made a cover page for it that made it clear that like, look, this is a living document that I may change it if something better comes along, and you
Hmm.
know, it's things are going to change day of, you know, based on field logistics and all that stuff. But we're going to, at every game, print off the most current one and just have it there printed on the field. So that if anyone has a question, you can just come over to the tent and open
Yeah.
it up. It's got a table of contents. We've got the other thing that it was in one of Danny's earlier drafts, and he may have ended up going through this. But when I was reading through like general rule, he had it broken down in a similar way that I now do. General rules for competing, then general rules for distance, general rules for height. But there'd be some language inside of the general rules for competing that I just felt was more appropriate if it moved to the distance only section, and
Hmm.
vice versa, and things like that. So I just tried to go through there and make it non duplicative and just straightforward top to bottom. There's a table of contents. When you get to stones, the first thing you read is stone weight for men, stone weight for women, you know,
Hmm.
for open stone. And then subsection 2 is stone weight for Braemar men, stone weight for Braemar women, and so on and so forth. The distance ones are all broken up that same way. There's illustrations for trigs and caber judging, and, you know,
Yeah.
so
I like
I'd
it.
like to think it's tidy and nice. I'm sure someone will point out a way that it's not, but for right now, I'm happy with it.
Well, and like I don't know, I feel like our rules are simple enough. Like it doesn't need to be an encyclopedia of information uh, to cover
No,
everything. But I mean, maybe
no,
one
it
day it
really
will.
doesn't. And that's it, you know what? I think one day it should be, and I genuinely find that people are more agreeable when expectations are clear for both sides.
Yeah.
And I put that in our opening cover page too. Is this isn't just for the athletes. This is for the athletes, for the judges, for the athletic director. Like, this is so we all are on the same page, because then we all benefit. Because again, I'll keep harping on it. The lack of transparency in our sport is also killing itself. Like everyone wanting to gatekeep information to their set organization or practice group or whatever, like is hurting everyone. Like they're it's not helpful. And then
Yeah.
you're going to wonder why no one's showing up to your game. Well, because spoiler alert, jackass, half your athletes traveled, and the world is now bigger, and we have access to more information, and they know where games are, and they're
Mhm.
just going somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, there's only 1,000 of us to go around. Like,
Right.
so oh
Yeah.
well. I'm just doing what I can, and
Yeah. I
we'll
am.
see if it inevitably drives me insane.
Yeah. I'm quite optimistic about like the state of the games. 'Cause, I mean, on paper, it's not great. It doesn't look good.
No.
But I think there's enough people like you, like Danny, Josh McIntosh, who are trying to do things better, and that's really good because what it seemed like, and this is no shade on any AD, but a lot of them over the last couple of years just seem to be getting by, and
Hmm.
if you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not trying to change with the times, then it's going to go away.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. The feeling of the sport right now is that things are coming back, like,
Mm,
and moving forward. I It hasn't caught up on paper yet, but I think where everyone is at from a oh, I'm forgetting the word. Sweet Jesus, three monsters was not enough. But from how people feel about the sport, that angle of things, the emotional side, and
mhm.
the way it's being perceived, I think the perception is that things are trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
And I think a big help with that is like, thank God I am no longer the only Highland Games podcast. For the love of God, is so. But it really it adds an air of legitimacy to our sport, right? If people have multiple things they can go consume about it. I mean, that
That's
is a marker
yes.
for anything. I mean, if I wanted to listen to a podcast about the NFL, I'd have 50 choices
Hmm.
show up in my search bar. So the fact that now if you were to go look for one for our little sport, and there's now at least 3 or 4 to pick from instead of one.
Right.
That's progress. That's a 300% increase from a year and a half ago.
Yeah. So what one of the things I think about in growing the sport, it's like it's a multi like pronged approach. It's like the holistic thing of it is you need to give people games, easy access to games. They can go on Heavy
Mm-hmm.
Athlete and sign up for games right then and there. Boom, real easy. You don't have to. And I don't know how many games are being posted on Heavy Athlete right now, but at some point you would think the ones that aren't attached to like a big festival will all be on Heavy Athlete, because some of these big festivals, like, they run their own ticketing and things like that, their own sign ups. But I think soon, everyone that used to sign up with on a Google Doc, or what's that one, Iron Podium, is that a thing?
Yep.
Okay,
Hmm.
yeah,
That
Iron
was the one
Podium.
designed for strongman that we would use sometimes. Texas
Yeah,
still, for some reason, loves using Iron Podium.
at some point, ideally, everyone will transition over to that. So, like, there's a central place where pretty much everything, all the games you want to do are right there. That's huge.
Hmm.
Access to implements that you can just buy. You don't have to like Facebook message someone and hope they get back to you, because this is their alt account that they access once a month, and you might not get an implement, and they're probably out of stock because everyone's always out of stock on implements.
Yep.
That's a huge thing that I think a couple people are working on fixing. The information out there, we need more information. There's a ton of information if you want to learn how to throw Highland games. You can go to Matt Vincent's videos, which is what I did, which is what Kyle Lilly did. I talked to him about that. Like, a bunch of people went to those in like his
Hmm.
going deep sections. You got to dig deep through 2,000 videos on his YouTube, but you'll find them. Uh, I
Yeah,
think
get past all the self-help while he's wearing rosary beads, and you will eventually get
yeah,
to them.
yeah.
Yeah.
I got a lot to say about that. I'll
But
say it for
look,
another
we can
day.
shift this podcast into just being confused by post ayahuasca Matt Vincent,
Yeah,
because I'm all
it's a,
for it.
he's a very confusing man with his beads and his spiritual journey with it. Like, it's not about chasing that dollar; it's living your dream while he's wearing a $15,000
Yeah.
fucking watch. But
Yeah.
whatever.
Chase your
It's
dream, but pay me $2,000 to come to this retreat for me to tell you that you're wasting your time.
retreat culture is so weird. It's so crazy.
I'm so confused why I'm paying another man to essentially emotionally bully me for a weekend and how that's supposed to make me better. But
The
whatever.
the fun ones are like vacations. Come vacation with me. Why? Why would I vacation with you? I don't get it.
Oh, bro.
But
Okay, are we getting shit faced and listening to David Allen Coe? Because that's what I want to do with my vacation.
that's what we're doing. Yeah. Well, we're doing it in Fiji though, so it's like you drink out of a
Oh,
coconut or something. But so, like, the
whatever.
entertainment, right? Or the knowledge base. There is a ton of stuff out there. You can watch old Ryan Vieira videos, which is what I did.
Hmm.
If you want to watch a shit ton of pros, like, just do a technique, watch his. There's a guy on YouTube. They're not on Ryan Vieira's YouTube channel. They're on some other guys. But if you type in Ryan Vieira, you'll find them. And they're two-part like VHS series that are now put on YouTube, and it's just a shit ton of throws. It's very interesting. Very, very cool. It's got a nice aesthetic to it. But there needs to be more currently, right? So if you type in
Hmm.
like 9 Point Day, or type in my name or whatever, like, you're going to get a shit ton of content of like just Highland games that pops up. And if there were 100 more of us, 100 more of me out there putting out the exact same content, like, that's only going to help people in catching up, getting up to speed. Because that's like my biggest thing is, you make the decision to throw in the games, and you sign up for one, and it's 6 months out. Like, how are you going to get up to speed on what all 9 events are, how to do it, what to
Hmm.
bring, all that stuff? There's like a learning curve that, like, I think we need more people putting out information to shorten that learning curve. And then coaching, right? We need Highland Games coaching. It is not necessary to pay for a coach to learn how to throw in the Highland Games. almost no one does it, but it is a sign of the health of
Oh
the
fuck.
sport.
No.
It's a sign as of the health of the sport that we have people who are good enough uh, and willing enough to coach someone on how to do it.
Hmm.
The other part, this last part, is entertainment. Just like you mentioned, like you can look up an NFL like podcast, and then 100 of them will pop up just really quickly, and they're all good and high quality. Um, I it's tough to do what Matt Vincent did back in like 2016, right? Walking around with a
Right.
selfie camera talking to it. But fuck, was it entertaining. I watched every video. I loved it. I thought it was very fun and cool. But he was the only one doing it, right? And if there were,
Yeah.
100 more people out there like talking about how they're getting ready for games and things like that, like you can watch that as just entertainment and feel more immersed in the sport while not actually doing it. And I think that'll be huge. Like with our podcasts, that's what a lot of people get out of it. Is like they get to enjoy the Highland Games off the field,
Hmm.
and I think if we hit on all of those as athletes, as people with influence in the sport, that like it will help. It'll trend us in the right direction.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. The more people that have an option to sit down on their lunch break at work and watch shit like this,
mhm.
as opposed to, Sports Center reruns,
Yeah,
we're going to be moving in the right direction. All right, good.
the hard
Yeah,
part
no, you did my
is
job for me because I was going to be like, hey, you mentioned education. How do we do that? And then you just listed all the ways.
yeah,
So this is fantastic. I'm going to have you on more often because you just bring it up and then answer it, and I just have to sit here.
yeah.
Just
The hard part with like
chill.
education is making compelling like content. It is for
Hmm.
someone who's I've been putting stuff on YouTube for like I don't know maybe 2 years now. It sucks.
Yeah.
I'm aware of the quality of content that I'm putting out, and it is hard to do a million different things and get better at like editing videos. Uh,
And it takes so much time and like
yeah.
a weird amount of money. It's not astronomical, but it's just enough to where you really want to see a return on it, you know?
Hmm.
I
Yeah, there there are
it's
things that I need for the podcast and for video editing and stuff that I just don't have right now, and I'm like, and trying to find the right piece of tech that's not like
hmm
underpowered and will work for your purposes without cost. Because like I could buy a $6,000 MacBook Pro, which those exist apparently. I didn't think laptops cost that much money, but like if I get one of those, I
yeah.
know it's going to work for me. But like, there's like we're human and we don't get paid to do this, so like you got to find that balance of what works, and it's
Hmm.
a lot of nonsense, but it's all for the greater good.
It's a lot of nonsense. It's then a lot of wasted money because you think you found something that's going to do it on the budget and then it doesn't. And
Yep.
it
Yeah. I mean, like
it's heartbreaking.
we're using Riverside, right? And like, if
Hmm.
I'm ever at a games and I'm trying to do a podcast with someone, I need an internet connection to use Riverside to do the podcast. So I got to find another way to record podcast at the same level that I had been doing. So I don't want to go down. I just got to keep it at least the same.
Blackmagic app on your iPhone will do it. So there's a Blackmagic camera app where you can use outside microphones and stuff like that. You can record in 4K and change a whole bunch of settings around.
Yeah. Black Magic.
There you go.
I'll look into it. I don't see you got the nice DJI mics. I don't have those.
My little
The so I probably should have gotten those instead of this one here. I got two of these. So if
yeah.
I'm in person, I have another microphone, and like they're pretty good, but they require a computer to work, a computer that
Oh,
runs
so
power out. Yeah.
yep. The pain in the butt with these, I bought them because they were supposedly so versatile. Like if I ever actually pull the trigger on like a DJI active cam or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
I can link up to them. If I run Riverside on my phone, it doesn't link to these. Riverside on my phone doesn't give me the choice to use an external mic. This does. So when I'm
Mm-hmm.
using the Chromebook setup, but I only have a Chromebook. I, again, don't have a $6,000 MacBook.
Hmm.
So my Chromebook doesn't even have the processing power to do the little fake background when I'm on it. Like, it's it's trying really hard to keep up with running a webcam right now. Like
Right.
it's struggling. So it really is just one of those weird things of how do you make it all work. Luckily, I found that Riverside on my phone will work with my Apple AirPods, which have decent microphones in them. So I can just put
Yeah.
one of those in my ear and do what I need to. But yeah, it's yeah, the Black Magic app will let you select which microphones and all that stuff and how you want to record, and you can change the levels around. And then the first two times I used that, I was struggling. I was like, God, I have this massive 2 GB file that I have to try and move from my
Hmm.
iPhone over to my computer. I didn't realize the whole time it also is saving things to the literal Files app on my phone. I was like, oh, I can just plug my phone in tonight, everything will sync up, and tomorrow morning I can just go on my computer and it's on my iCloud, and I can then
Yeah.
just move
See,
it over much
and
easier.
I've had an iPhone for a couple years now, and I still don't know how it works with regards to like
Yeah, we're
iCloud
old
stuff.
now, buddy. This is yeah.
Yeah, I'm an Android guy that got an iPhone just for funsies. Like I'm gonna try it out. That was a mistake,
Mm,
and now I'm like,
yeah.
now I don't
Now
know how
you're
to
too
work
far
either
in.
of them. Yeah, I don't know how to work either of them anymore. And so like,
Uh huh.
it's a constant struggle. I go to my iCloud and like look at like see like, oh, what pictures like synced up or whatever. It's the most random things, like and stuff I deleted off my phone because it was like a screenshot of my alarm. What for
hmm
some reason it saved that to the iCloud, but not my PR like from like Sheaf last year or whatever. Like that's
Yeah.
not on there.
Years ago, I had it that way. My what was on my iCloud was this has become Grandpa's technology corner now. It my iCloud was full of old photos that I didn't even know still existed. I finally somehow got them all to sync up. So now what is on my phone is what is on my iCloud, which like everything's the same. But my God, did it take
Hmm.
a year and a half of me just being confused to actually figure that out. I have no idea what has changed at some point. Some update that someone else did, almost certainly, not me. Finally got everything on the same page. But yeah, it was hard for a while,
Yeah,
like
I,
harder
I'm
than it
I'm
should have been.
I'm anti-technology. Yeah, I'm anti-technology.
Yeah.
Bit of a luddite. I can't tell you how many podcasts I've recorded and are not out there. Like they just
Dude,
they didn't stick.
Ponzio and
Uh,
I literally sat on my porch for an hour when he was here during deer season, and I had never hit record. We talked
mhm.
for an fucking hour sitting in the sun when we should have been in a deer stand, and I never hit
Yeah,
record. So that was when we did driving to the stand where you can barely hear us. I almost get in a car
yeah,
accident, and I think like 16 people listened to it. It was terrible.
yeah.
So we
The first podcast I recorded on Riverside, they have like that red record button, and I was like, the minute we got it, jumped into the studio, like it's recording, yay for that. Me and Austin did like a 3 hour podcast, and it was good. We're hitting on every topic. We're just fucking crushing it, just riffing back and forth. And I go to like, I'm like, all right, I'll end this now. So I click record, and I was like, oh, fuck. Yeah,
motherfucker.
great. Yeah.
Uh huh.
So,
Yeah. Thanks for
I
being
told
so
him like,
user friendly, Riverside.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like,
When Spotify for creators used to let me just record audio on their app, it was the best
mhm,
thing ever. Like I don't care about the video. I know I do it so that I can have more to put onto YouTube and all that. And if I ever want to break it down into clips and actually put in the effort, but like my day job pays the bills. I don't need to, like
yeah.
so. But
Unfortunately, this is my day job. This is what I do.
yeah, yeah. No,
I
this is all the people have to look at, and I'm
yeah,
sorry. So
yeah. I am a trophy husband, so this is what I get to spend my time doing, and I
hmm
wish I was better at it.
no, look. Every time y'all put out a clip, I think to myself, I'm like, I should start doing that, and then I think some more, and I'm like, I'm gonna go take a nap. I'm not.
Yeah,
That's. I'm sleepy. I'm tired of this, Grandpa. But all right.
tired of this grandpa.
Well, I don't know how much we necessarily accomplished, but it's been almost an hour of us yapping. I like some of the takeaways of that though, and my knee jerk reaction is that Woodridge has been asking me to do a springtime game.
Hmm.
And I wonder how much participation I would get if I said, all right, St. Patty's Day weekend, we have a 5 event, 4 to 5 hour long open format for like just men and women, you know?
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of games that weekend. If masters and lightweights and all those people want to go throw somewhere else, it's not excluding them. There's
Right.
lots of stuff going on, but shit, if I put up $2,000 in prize money, I think
Yeah.
people would
And
show
this
up. I'd like to think.
this is kind of a hot take that people don't want to hear about. I think the sport will be better if we cared more about the the non-masters, the non-lightweights, the non-BC kind of groups. If we
Hmm.
put more effort into the professional women, professional men, or open men, open women, I think we will be a lot better off in the future if we catered more to them than the masters. And
I think so
people are gonna
100%.
people are gonna hate me for that, but that's the truth.
This is from someone who used to be a really good lightweight. You know, no one cares about those guys.
Yeah, well, I mean,
But
so okay, we had a real sick couple years, and again, they're all going to listen to this and be mad at me for saying it. We had a good couple years, and then 5 of the top 10 left for whatever reason. They went up to pro, or they taken some years off or whatever. But the I don't want to say the quality went down, but it's different. And if you're a good lightweight, this is my point, is why we should focus on more of the open, not necessarily the open model, just guys throwing the 56, women throwing the 28, things like that. Is if you are a good lightweight man and a good lightweight woman, you can throw the 56 just fine. You're throwing 34, 35 feet with
hmm
the 56 every day of the week. And if you can't, then you should get better, because I did it. A lot of other people did it. It's not crazy complex. And if you're a master's athlete, if you're a good master's athlete, you already throw the 56 at least once a year. Most of these guys do. So you're not actually even excluding them,
hmm
because they already do it.
yeah, and I
Like
if
retired pros will
if
still take
again like if,
pro games.
yep, and that's the kind of the thing. If we really elevated the pinnacle of the sport, the opens and the pros, but at the same time did what Matt brought up in his episode about the games dying of embracing backyard games,
Mm-hmm.
those other classes will still get plenty of times to throw. Like you're saying, if the local practice groups host a couple of backyarders every year, those people are still going to get to compete.
Yep.
Or if the festival also has a Sunday, those people are still going to get to compete. And it, if we
And
were like,
if
look,
they
we're
don't have a
not the
Sunday,
NBA. We're not. Yeah, like
yeah, if they don't have a Sunday, they can do it
we're
in the
not the
morning.
NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the NBA exists, and you have the LeBron James and all these guys like doing their thing. If it was the same model, but you can still go to any YMCA and find a 40-year-old dude just enjoying playing pickup basketball. Like it doesn't mean that just because one group is the one that gets promoted and paid the most that you still don't have opportunities to go do the thing. There will still be rec leagues. There will still be all these other ways for you to go enjoy a sport. And
Mm-hmm.
you can't grow unless you do that because you won't keep attracting good, competitive, entertaining athletes if that top end isn't promoted. They're going to go play another sport. They're they're not going to come
Right.
play with us.
See, and like that kind of brings the point of that there are plenty of opportunities for people to still do the thing, but people want to be the main event. They whether you're qualified to be the main event or not, they still want it. So if you tell people like, oh, we're doing an open this year, so if you're a masters or lightweight thrower or whatever, you can still compete with men and women. They will be upset that they can't be the main event in their respective like divisions.
Hmm.
Like it's like and again, this might be a little, I don't want, maybe rude, I guess. I cannot play basketball with LeBron James, and it is ridiculous for me to think that I can. And so I
Yeah.
wouldn't expect the Lakers to sign me. Same thing if there's a big championship, like if you are 2 years into throwing, expecting to be at men's world championship or at least be at the same competing on the same day as them, it's a little unrealistic, I think, and it doesn't help us grow fans of the sport. That's another point that with the entertainment aspect of it. If our entertainment is quality enough on the field and off the field on YouTube and things like that, we will grow a fan base of people that actually enjoy
Hmm.
just what we do. We have no fans right now. There are no fans of the Highland Games, just
No,
family
there's
members and
three
athletes.
weirdos at every event, and that's it. Yeah.
Maybe. If I recall, I remember talking to Matt about this, about Cabermetrics. If I recall, he said
Hmm.
that was a fan of Highland Games. It wasn't an athlete. It was just a guy. I might be wrong about it. I've been telling people that, so I hope I'm right.
Here's the thing. I think you're right. To this day, I don't know who ran it. I
That's the funnest
I
thing
couldn't
because
tell
we all
you. I know Mike does because he's talked to him.
exactly, yeah. And I
I
can't
don't
remember
know.
who it
It
was,
just
but
existed.
yeah, they bought a sticker from him. They're like, I can't remember the guy's name. I'm like, he doesn't have a name. It's fun. It's a mystery. But if it is truly
Yeah.
a fan of the sport that's just good with numbers, then like that's the one guy. Everyone else, there's no one else. So we have to build.
Yeah.
That's another thing to help keep the sport from dying is just to develop fans. There are a few games in the country or North America that have kind of a fandom. That's Celtic. I think I think Victoria in Canada. I think that's another one that like if you show up there and you show up in the next year, they remember your name. But nowhere else in the country
Hmm.
is like that. And that kind of comes down to the product of the games. If you have a games, you got to think of it as in this kind of it's tough for ADs to do because this is a part-time gig. It's less than part-time for most of them. But you got to treat it as a business. You're creating a product, an entertainment product for the crowd, and a another type of product for the athletes. And so like you have to like really think hard, long and hard about what this actually is and how you're going to do it to make it better. Because like any business, if you're not progressing, then you're just then people are going to stop using it. Like if you have an app on your phone that stops getting updates, at some point you're going to stop using it because it's crap. It doesn't work with the new phone.
Yep.
And for a games example, like if you don't change games to meet the standard of other games, people are going to stop showing up. They're going to stop buying your
Hmm.
product. But it's tough when games don't make any money and ads walk away with $0 or negative dollars at the end of it. That
Yeah.
could that's kind of the nature of what Highland Games has been. Not everyone's a business minded individual and stuff like that. So and
Yeah.
some ADs
No.
aren't
And then
aren't aren't qualified to run the games that they have. They inherited it from someone else. They thought they could take it on, and they're not willing to give it up when they probably shouldn't be running it.
yeah, that's fair. The last thing I'll say, and then we'll wrap it up unless you have
Hmm.
something for me, is speaking of that, we went back and forth for years on how to make it more entertaining and engaging for the crowd, and we were debating the idea of like a big whiteboard at Woodridge, and
Hmm.
writing up leaderboards and all this stuff. But then, how in the fuck do I take a 6 foot whiteboard from my house to the venue? And what if it's raining, or what if it's humid, or whatever? We used Sedalia this weekend as a test for the live scoring system on Heavy
Hmm.
Athlete. And now all I'm going to do at Woodridge is print a bunch of yard signs with QR codes, and every athlete or every spectator can just scan that with their phone and get live updates on everyone's scoring and actually
Right.
stay invested and know who's winning. And it's,
Yeah.
I think, little things like that are going to be really nice, you know?
Yeah.
So,
That's a huge idea. The only downside is if you have 100 people on the field, the
Yeah,
crowd doesn't know.
right.
Crowd doesn't remember.
It's
They don't remember your name. They don't know who they're looking at. So like, if you have 10 guys and
which
10 girls, like it's a lot easier to remember. Like, oh, I like Jeremy because like he's the one who did this. Like he joked around with me over there. Like I'm gonna keep an eye on his scores.
Yep. So, which is why this year, while I'm announcing, or if I hire an announcer, they're just following the pro class around on Saturday.
Yeah.
Like, everyone else is going to be doing their thing, but I'm just tying them to the pros. Like, not to be rude to everyone else, but specifically to drive up that engagement and for people to be able to pick people out and root for them. Because if that's
Right.
the group I'm shoving down your throat all day, then those are the people you're going to start being invested in, you know?
Well, and
So,
that's the group you should be shoving down their throat because you're the one
mhm.
paying them.
Yeah.
You it is an odd thing to pay for pros when you don't utilize the fact that they're professionals. Because if you don't have an announcer following them around and they're just competing just like the other 5 or 6 groups on the field, why did you pay
Hmm.
them? It makes
Yeah.
no sense. So like you need to put them in front of people. You need to have them shake the sponsors' hands and take photos and things like that. And that's where being a pro becomes easy is when the AD understands that and they give you the tools to like be engaging. An example, like when we were in Alaska as lightweights, they didn't have a pro class that year. We were the main event, and Janie gave us like little flags. We all had our own little color. I think mine was yellow, and I walked around with these yellow flags and I handed them out. So when I'm getting ready to throw a hammer, I'm looking back at like the bleachers packed full of people. Little yellow flags were like just waving, and like people were like rooting specifically for me. And then when I throw and someone else goes up in there, you see a red flag. I have all the red flags up there, and it's all the same people. They just have all of our flags. But if you're paying a professional, you need to utilize the fact that they are the best at what they do, and that's throwing and entertaining. And having a good announcer is like the first step in that. That and so I'll give you real quick before we end my
Hmm.
my ideal setup for having a pro class and having other athletes on the field as well because some games don't have 2 days and they got 160 people they got to like work in. If like a games could swing it, I think the best setup would be wherever your bleachers are and wherever your beer tent is. If you have a beer tent,
Hmm.
there's going to be a sheaf standard and there's going to be a trig, and that's where the pros are going to live on that corner of the field all day long. And so people are next to the beer tent, next to the food trucks, and they can just sit in the bleachers and enjoy the spectacle. And the pros will run a lot faster when they're not having to travel all the way across the field to go throw hammers. And they can just do it all right there. And they're not having to wait for trigs because they have their own trigs, their own weights. They can throw caber, sheaf, wob, stones and hammers, everything all right in the same, little area. And
Yep.
no hammer cage or no hammer cage during the stones and weights. And then when you throw hammers, take 10 minutes, put up a hammer cage. It doesn't take a lot. And that way, everyone is sitting in front of the people that you're paying money to see. So,
Yeah. No,
but
it's not bad. I don't hate
yeah,
it. All right. Well, sweet. This has been a very solution focused end to the games are dying, which feels fitting. It feels like what I probably should have set out to do, but either way, I'm happy it got there.
yeah.
So
I try to be
awesome.
optimistic.
Look, good for you. No, but
You do
I
that.
appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you for
This
having
has
me.
been fun. I will hopefully get this out this week, and yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sweet. Thank you so much, man.
Yep.